Hey Mike, my name's Yanni. I'm also in class 5, and I'm just giving you some feedback here on your shot. It's looking really cool. The line's absolutely great. It's really funny. There's a nice difference between both of them, and I like the way that you've acted this out. There's quite a nice difference between the characters, and everything's kind of like working okay. There's a few things I think that you can polish off. And I think kind of like my main thing that jumps out at me first of all is very much the walk, that it feels a little bit rigid at this point. There's quite a few pops as she walks around. It's a bit of a difficult motion to get somebody to turn in 3D and actually still walk naturally, so that's kind of like a bit of a thing. But also kind of like the way that she's walking, you can't really get the idea if she's stomping or if she's swaying. It's kind of like I think it's kind of like it doesn't look like an angry female walk, if that makes any sense at all. Kind of like still looks a bit kind of like Vanilla Ray. You can throw in a little bit of attitude as well, and I think that I'd almost try to keep kind of like the head bobbing down to a minimum, and the sway of the hips kind of like to be a bit more pronounced to an extent. So she's walking along. I'd also have a look at the arm swing as well, because currently it feels like at the beginning it's very kind of like drifty, and then kind of like it's more energetic as she kind of like gets her anger up a little bit. But have a look at the arcs that the hands are actually doing, and keep kind of like these nice tight figure eight motions all the way through that. I think kind of like also when she's coming towards camera in frame 42, she needs to keep her attention on the phone. So I'd always put the eye line looking towards the actual phone itself, and also trying to avoid things where the phone's really a lot in her face. Like on frame 50, I'd actually take the hand and actually move it out here, so that when she's knocking her head back, the phone's here. So she's very much talking here, and everything with the phone is happening in this area over here. So it never ever ever intersects her face unless she's kind of like doing a gesture like this over here. So I think that move the phone out of the way over there. In frame 53, that's a great moment to actually have the phone and just flipped like that, and her actually yelling into it, so that this shape over here and this shape in the lips is almost parallel over there, because that'll make it a really strong line. And then avoid the hand actually intersecting the chin on frame 53 as well. Try to keep your silhouettes very, 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 very clear, especially at this moment. And I think that she's got this big head back at frame 60, and you're actually using that to not really great effect, because it's kind of like at frame 60 she's knocking her head back, and I'd almost expect with this amount of anticipation for her to go and really kind of like move the entire body and actually change the shape of the spine as well. So it's one of those things that it's something that you could layer in. It's a bit of a big change, but you've got this frame on 83 where she's actually leaning forward. Again, you want to get that phone out of her face more and just turn the phone ever so slightly in space, because currently it's perfectly parallel about in camera like that. We want to see it a bit more, so rotate the hand outwards so that we can see the phone actually from a bit of perspective. And so keep her there, keep the phone, with a little bit of an angle, and very much when she gets down to 83, I think that's a really strong pose. So what my idea would be was to take the pose from frame 60 and find an interesting way of going directly into frame 83 and have some nice amount of cushion on either side. So anticipate quick motion down and hold frame 83 for a little bit, and get it done. She can actually be down in that pose all the time. So a little less head bonging, and get it done, and insist on that pose on frame 83, which again is very similar to the pose that you have in frame 99. So all of these ones, 60, 83, 99, all of those can be streamlined into one single emotion there, and it keeps it very clear and it keeps it very, 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 very direct. Again, a little note on frame 99. Hand, just move it a little bit back, the screen right hand, move it out of the way so it's not intersecting with her dress. There we go. And then when she goes to grab the phone and break it, I feel that here the breaking's a little bit too high. Just want to bring it down a little bit. So her arms are down, and here's a good time when you can use kind of like a bit of squash in her over here. So, rise her arms, bring her hands down, and her head comes down like that. So you've got these two kind of like opposing actions of the arms coming up and the head and the hands just dropping ever so slightly. Because currently your hands are kind of like almost locked in space. And again, I think you can take just maybe 2 or 3 more frames in the breaking before the hands come down like that. And I like I like a lot the little throw at the end, and that looks really cool. The other thing that I'd say is that when she's regaining her breath, um, it's a nice little detail that she's got actually touching her dress, but I feel like it's a bit too much. It's almost like it's such a strong action that it kind of like is it's that idea of secondary action in my mind, where you've got kind of the main action is her breaking the phone. Her regaining her composure is, secondary really to the scene. So really her breaking it has to be a big emotion than this one here, and it just seems a little bit forced because you've got this big kind of like hand swing. Either tone the hand down so that it moves very little, or just have a relax just with the hands so that her left and her right hands are a bit more on the same page. Okay, and that's roundabout, that's the hand kind of like the dress at frame 106. So going into the other character, one of the things I'd be careful is that with the clipboard, it's really on the verge of her neck, and actually at some points just the little metallic part eats into her chin, and it makes like her chin's actually disappearing at some points. And also clean the action out a little bit. You can still have her with the clipboard, but move the arm down a little bit so the clipboard's pointing out a bit more that way, and then have her, with the other hand over here, which is fine because it's not intersecting, it's just in the right place. And I think that, just be careful with those tangents. And when she looks down, she almost looks like she's looking at the clipboard itself. You might want to change the eye line depending on what the situation is. So if there's something like that's important in the clipboard, her attention goes back to it. Or if the clipboard's there just because it's there, move the eyes in the other direction. And let's have a look. Yeah, I'd say have a look at the nose for when you're polishing her up on frame 205. This is like the assistant character. And just track that and make sure that your arcs are there, but they just feel a little bit linear at some points. So just make sure that you've got a nice head bob there as she actually just looks down for a sec. And when it kind of like goes, you broke your phone. It seems like the emotion that you've got in you broke your phone is a bit kind of like centered around the chest and the hand. You broke your phone, and the hips really aren't moving. And I know that the hips really wouldn't move that much, but it's one of those things of you broke your phone. There can just be this very either slight tilt of the body forward with the hips kind of like going in the opposite direction because she feels a little bit rigid on the hips around frame 254. And then kind of like the punchline, I like the kind of like that you're continuing the action of her straightening her dress. I think that's a nice little touch at the beginning, but there's kind of like a really big kind of like hand movement. Let me just have a look at it again. Yeah, the screen right hand, it's moving a lot, especially around frame 82 all the way up and down to 94. So you've got this big action, in kind of like less than half a second of her hand doing that. tone that down or take it out. You know, it's just one of those things you can leave one long stroke on the hand instead of trying to kind of like wave the hands around a little bit too much. And when she goes, I have spares, it's one of those points where, you know, it's a completely different direction, you know, that the phone could take us that, but it really would feel funny if she actually pulled the phone out at that point, or if she had a handbag or something there that she could just go, I have spares, and she pats it or something like that. Just because that's really kind of like the funny part of the actual shot. So I think that, you know, your punchline can be a little bit stronger at the end, but the expressions and everything are really working fine. I've mostly commented on the body mechanics because I think it's probably the parts where, you know, you can get a lot of stuff actually done as well. But have you a look at your facial animation as well, and especially try to avoid very exaggerated eyebrows and eye kind of like shapes, because kind of like your shapes are most of the time always round. Your eyebrows are kind of like very much locked in a single pose, you know, throughout most of it, which is good. Kind of like the pose that worries me a little bit in the eyes is the eyebrow shape in frame 133. That could be a little bit different. Her eyebrows shooting up, you know, really quickly in about just a frame in frame 141. Kind of like her eyebrows go from completely down to bonk up like that. Put a bit of a transition in there. Look for some shapes which are not straight either, so she doesn't tween between those. And then when her eyes go down, come up, you know, you've also got kind of like a very typical both eyebrows also moving at the same time. Remember to break some of that up a little bit so that it's not exactly happening at the same time. You can offset some keys there and soften that up a little bit on the assistant in frame 184. Yeah, and also have a look at the shape around frame 298, because she's got her eyebrows. One of them's actually so high that it's being hidden behind the clump of hair, and you might want to just change that round so that the expression goes in the other direction. We try to keep the eyebrows always visible as well, so they're not hidden behind things, because they can sell so much. And I do like the little drop that you do at the end of frame 327. That's a very nice kind of like zip over there, you know, and I like the expression at the end. I think she's just at some points not looking directly at the assistant. There's a little bit of an eye dart at the end in frame 338. The eyes just drift a little bit down screen. Keep those eyes focused on the assistant. But it's great work, man. You know, it's really tough, you know, the stuff that you're actually doing to put a walk and to put, you know, so much kind of like over the top action acting into it, which is absolutely great. But it's like, wow, you know, there's a lot of little things, you know, that you could do with this. But I'd say, yeah, keep going, man. You know, polish up as much as you can get done. But I think that, you know, for me, it's like, you know, that walk at the beginning is really the part that I'd really try and nail as best I can, and really look at some stuff like silhouettes and stuff like that. But anyway, man, great work, Mike. And yeah, if you need anything else, just drop us a line. And I hope this helps. And have a great week. See ya.